So let's begin with proper fourth entrance chant. No nagia puagana le ya le ya ki o ega buago na ilo maluitala malue o Maria na ola kai pana mauga no. This is a classic chant of the hula dancer. The setting is the pristine Hawaiian rainforest and the cloud-kissed slopes of the West Maui Mountains. The translation of the chant makes it clear that in the Hawaiian worldview, the upland realm is the home of the gods, a sacred place from which Laka, the goddess of hula, confers inspiration and personal growth, not on just anyone, but those committed to her care. There's a Hawaiian saying that reflects this relationship well. He ali'i ka'aina, he kaua wale ke kanaka. The land is the chief, and the people merely servants. When we attend hula events such as Merry Monarch in Hilo or Prince Lot Festival at Moanalua Garden, we sometimes find ourselves glimpsing, especially through the hula kahiko, the ancient dance, a hint of the intimate relationships between people and their natural setting that was a fundamental part of existence in Hawaii before Western contact. Islands of Hawaii, far more than white sand beaches and palm trees, boast a huge range of ecosystems and conditions. And I don't need to spend much time with this group going over such aspects as the topographic range from flat to vertical, the dynamics of land ranging in age from just formed and devoid of life to climax forests supporting thousands of species. From the extremes of our moisture conditions, from extremely dry to arguably the wettest spot on Earth, or our elevational breadth from 0 to just shy of 14,000 feet. This was a setting that provided not only for bountiful necessities, but the rich luxuries of Hawaiian life. A natural setting that enabled Hawaiian culture to flourish as one of the pinnacles in Polynesian society, excelling in voyaging, in featherwork, fishing and fish ponds, household amenities, kapa fabrics, and crafts of all kinds, and generating an equally rich cultural system in the pre-contact society that developed within it. Hula was but one of the many cultural developments of ancient Hawaii, and it's one of the most strongly expressed today. Therefore, it continues to be an excellent venue for exploring the relationship of Hawaiians to the natural world. As we explore these natural connections, I want to examine three major themes. First, the spiritual foundations of hula and the major deities of the ancient dance form. We'll see how from ancient times, hula was an art dedicated to specific deities in the Hawaiian pantheon, and that these were associated with specific plants and animals. Second, hula clothing, ornamentation, and instruments form the material expressions associated with hula that came from both cultivated and wild sources. And finally, the mele, the chants, and the songs of the hula from ancient times to today celebrate and incorporate elements of the aina, land, sea, and sky.
The goddess of volcanism, Pele, perhaps the most widely known of the Hawaiian deities, is strongly associated with hula via the epic tale of Hi'iaka Ikapolio Pele. In this oral tradition, Hi'iaka Ikapolio Pele, the youngest and most beloved sister of the fire goddess, is sent on a quest that takes her across the island chain for her sister. Early on, she encounters Hopoi, a forest goddess, dancing on the shore at the edge of her hala forest.
Hi'iaka is entranced by the movements of Hopoi and her dance, and asks her to teach them to Hi'iaka, thus providing the origin not only of hula, but of the tradition of teaching hula. So just as ho'okupu or offerings are presented at the edge of the volcano, So also, many dancers of the Pele repertoire moved to provide hula to honor Pele in her home of eternal fires. But as we heard in the chants that began this talk, the primary deity of hula is the goddess Laka, a forest deity. In the ancient Hawaiian universe, the world was divided into a dichotomy: the realm of people, the Waukanaka, occupying the lowlands, where that which grows is the result of human effort. And above the comfortable lowland zone was the Wawakua, the realm of the gods, where human effort had nothing to do with the verdant growth of native forests, and where conditions were often wild and elemental. Indeed, the wilds of the Wawakua were considered profoundly sacred and perilous for human incursion. Only small parties led by specialists with knowledge of the forest and its resources could enter the Wawakua, and only with purposeful, positive intent and after rigorous ceremonial protocol. Now, the Kumu Hula, the hula master, was one of those specialists that could enter the realm of Laka, and one of the main reasons for such entry was to gather the ho'okupu, the offerings to the kuahu of Laka, Laka's altar. One of the plants found only in the Wawakua is the olapa, a tree in the same family as ginseng, bearing compound leaves, typically with 5 leaflets borne on graceful, long petioles. Like that. Come on, where is it? There we go. This means that in the slightest breeze, the leaves of the olapa are in motion, even while nothing else in the forest is moving, drawing attention to the singular beauty of the tree. So it's no surprise that the Hawaiian word for a standing hula dancer is olapa, representing the grace of standing motion. One of the dominant trees of the Wawakua in ancient times was lama, a Hawaiian tree related to ebony and persimmon. Its fruits are like miniature persimmons, but neither the foliage nor the fruit provide the connection of this tree to hula. Instead, we must look lower to the kumu, the trunk of the tree, for the answer. The wood of the lama forms the central offering on the kuahu, the altar of Laka, at the halau, the teaching grounds of the hula. The word lama means light and symbolizes enlightenment, a symbol accentuated with kapa dyed bright yellow. So the central offering of the kumuhula and the kuahu hula represents enlightenment, a vital element in any learning endeavor. And what we see below the lama and yellow kapa is also important. We see several of the kino lau of Laka. A kino is a physical form, and lau is a word that refers to a large but generally manageable number. So the kino lau is a set of physical manifestations of a deity. For a fire goddess such as Pele, the kino lau can be fumes, dense smoke, a red glow, licking flames, molten rock, and the solidified forms of volcanic action. But for an upland forest goddess such as Laka, the kino lau are native plants of the Wawakua. And on this kuahu, for example, we see the red liko or leaf buds of the ohia lehua, the fine greenery of palapalai ferns, and the more leathery and thick fronds of the pala below them all. The ohia lehua tree, besides being one of the kino of Laka, besides being one of the kino of Laka, is the dominant species in Hawaiian wet forest on all islands. It's an adaptable and extremely variable species in flower color, leaf shape, stature, etc. And its nectar-rich flowers provide the mainstay for Hawaiian honey creepers, such as the apapane. Oh, we're going to have trouble, aren't we? The red flowers of the ohia tree are called lehua. And among the meanings of this word are the blossoms of the ohia tree, the first warrior to die in battle, and most relevant perhaps to the offering of lehua onto the kuahu hula. Lehua means expert, and particularly an expert in the physical skill, such as hula. On this kuahu, we see, in addition to the lama wood and yellow kapa, a lei of the native vine called maile. It grows as a slightly woody vine or sprawling bramble of long stems bearing leaves of various size and shape. Maile is another of the kino lau of Laka, often growing luxuriantly, and its sap exudes a wonderful and unmistakable fragrance, fresh, cool, and softly sweet. When braided into lei, They are among the most valued of Hawaiian ornamentation and add both fragrance and grace to any dancer and comprise an apt offering to the kuahu hula. Palapalai is one of the most prized of the ferns for lei making, delicate to look at but remarkably resistant, holding its form and color through the most vigorous of dances. It's no surprise at all that this is not only a popular lei for hula, but another of the kino lau of Laka. Here, a male dancer displays a lei po'o, a head lei, and kupe'e lima, a wristlet of palapalai fern, augmented by a lei a'i, a neck lei of maile. Ie is a climbing liana that sprawls through the dense vegetation of the wawakua, and its large, bright orange flowers are placed on the kuahu hula as another of the major kino lau of Laka. Ie is also kino lau for the god Lono, who presides over the winter wet season, when games and performing arts, such as chant and hula, are prominent. It's neither confusing nor uncommon for multiple gods to claim the same kino lau. For example, lehua blossoms might be kino of Laka, but they're also a major symbol of the goddess Pele, and the warrior connection mentioned earlier places the lehua firmly among the kino lau of Ku, god of war. Neither is it an either-or situation, as can be seen in the name of one of the Ku deities, Ku Ka'ohi'a Laka, where both deities, one male and one female, are named and combined and connected by their shared kino. Halapepe is the last of the plant kino lau of Laka that are most appropriate on the kuahu hula. Its foliage resembles that of Ie, though instead of sprawling, the halapepe is an erect, many-branched tree. The flowers of the halapepe are quite distinct, brilliant clusters of yellow that can be worked into lei.
Before we leave the kino lau, we must not neglect Hawaiian animal forms. Many people might be familiar with the giant Hawaiian dragonfly called pinao. It is a large relative of the green darner, but is larger than any of the dragonflies of North America, making it the largest dragonfly species of the United States. It graces the skies of Hawaii and did not escape notice in ancient times. There's a heiau, a temple, on Kauai that is named Pinao. Not surprisingly, the heiau is situated next to a spring that still flows today. The freshwater spring at the heiau is important to the Pinao because its larvae are aquatic naiads. Hawaiians call these naiads lohe lohe, and because they grow into the largest dragonfly in the United States, the lohe lohe are also quite hefty insects in their own right, stalking the bottoms of large freshwater pools in every stream, feeding on anything smaller than them. It's quite a surprise to many people, then, that the lohe lohe are also an appropriate offering on the kuahu hula. But two elements bring logic to this religious act. First, lohe means to attend, listen, pay attention, and to redouble that important element of learning, lohe lohe, makes it doubly appropriate. It is the nature of the lohe lohe to sit silently and watchfully in their pool. If you've ever watched them hunt, they sit perfectly still until a movement or vibration catches their attention. Then they immediately reposition themselves toward the object of their attention and wait further. This kind of attentiveness is exactly what a humu hula requires of their students: silence and total-bodied attentiveness. Furthermore, when the lohe lohe eats, it's an amazing explosive extension of special grasping mouthparts that quickly apprehend their prey. The word for such grabbing, apo, is related to the word a'apo, which means to quickly learn, to readily and rapidly understand the meaning of something. So, for the kumu hula, the lohe lohe symbolizes the perfect student, attentive and quick to grasp and understand what is being taught. Moving from the kino lau of hula, the second theme deals with hula clothing, ornamentation, and instruments, which form the material expressions associated with hula. These come from both wild and cultivated sources. The clothing of the mea hula of ancient times is called kapa, which is a pounded cloth of the paper mulberry called wauke. Hawaiian kapa is recognized as some of the finest in all of Polynesia, and the art of kapa making is seeing a resurgence today. Once the kapa is produced, it's an off-white canvas ready for further elaboration. The dyes for kapa derive from many plants and animals, ranging from the black soot of burned kukui nuts, the red extracted from noni roots, the green of Hawaiian cotton, and the purple of sea urchins, applied in a variety of ways, but perhaps the best known of these are with the intricately carved bamboo stamps called ohe kapana.
This engraving of Hawaiian men in the era of early Western contact shows the elaborate way kapa was sometimes tied for hula, although other engravings show bare minimum use of kapa. Aside from the kapa worn, the ornamentation of the lei and hula is a major part of the connection of hula to the natural world. This dancer wears a lei po'o, a head lei of fern, but around his neck and wrist are kupe'e shells. The kupe'e is a native narite that was used for lei making. It was so popular for wrist and ankle ornaments that the word for such ornaments of the extremities is kupe'e, although the shells may be strung in groups as shown here. The essence of the kupe'e is a single beautiful shell on a cord around the wrist. In fact, some rare and colorful varieties of kupe'e were reserved for chiefly ornamentation only, such as the banded kupe'e anue, literally rainbow kupe'e. Besides the classic kinalau plants, there's a huge range of native plants that can provide the ornamentation of hula. In lowland dry forests, ilima can assume a tall shrub form, as seen here at Pu'uokali on Maui. The delicate flowers of ilima are painstakingly strung into one of the most highly prized lei of Hawaii. And it's interesting to me that one of the most delicate of lei comes from the hot, dry lowlands, in strong contrast to the wet and lush fern and lehua from the cloud forest. It suggests to me, along with the inclusion of lama and halapepe, that Laka is not only a goddess of wet forest, but also the dry forest that is so rare in modern Hawaii. And thanks to the research that went into the book Nale Makamai, we know that much more than Lei Ilima came out of the Nahele Malo'o, the dry forest zone. Here are some fine examples. Lei Wili Wili, Lei Wuhi Wuhi, Lei Halapepe, and Lei Alahe'e. Returning to this image, one of the earliest depicting hula, we can see two items that count as both ornamentation and instruments. What's going on? The uliuli, a gourd rattle, often decorated with feathers and filled with hard seeds, and the kupe'e wawai, the leg ornament, made of hundreds of dog teeth tied onto a dense cord framework. What's not obvious until you wear the kupe'e wawai is that it's also an instrument. The teeth hang in loose contact with each other so that when the foot is stamped, as in the ku'i movement, they make a remarkable sound. Here's a closer look at the items. The kupe'e niho ilio can have from 300 to 600 or more teeth per side, tied together with olona, a native Hawaiian plant, providing one of the strongest natural fibers known. Olona is a nettle, but in Hawaii, none of our nettles sting since they evolved in a setting lacking any large herbivorous mammal. Hawaiians extracted and wove the fibers of olona into a wonderfully strong cordage. Nearly all of the finer items fastened with cordage were made from olona. So the hundreds of dog teeth were tied onto a framework of olona with loops on the edges for lacing onto ankle or calf. Meanwhile, the uli is at its basic level a hollow gourd into which hard seeds, such as those of mamane, were put to provide a rattling sound. The feather shield-like cap hides a short handle grip made of bases of tea leaves. With the feather disc missing, the underlying construction can be readily seen. Olona cord secures the framework of tea leaf stems in a cone upon which the ornamentation could be attached. Just as the uli's rattle vessel is of cord, so the basic hula drum is made of two ipu gourds, joined and lashed together. Here's a bit of a classic chant, Kualo loa kea au, with the sound of the ipu heke accompaniment. Yeah, that works. So ipu are vines in the cucumber family that were brought to Hawaii from Polynesia. The flowers are soon followed by hard fruit that grow into many different sizes and shapes, depending on the variety of ipu being grown. After the gourds mature, they dry into hard, smooth, hollow containers holding the seeds of the next generation of plants. And careful selection of just the right shaped gourds combined to give the classic form of the ipuheke. The ipuheke was and continues to be the primary percussion instrument for hula, as it was for the exhibition of hula at King David Kalakawa's Jubilee in 1886, and at a recent uniki ceremony on Kauai. Otherwise, the hula drum, the pahu, is generally reserved for the most sacred of dances, evolving from their use during the rites at Heya of the great temples. For example, here's an excerpt from a hula pahu, a sacred drum dance from the Heya of Paka'alana in the valley of Waipi'o, which was the royal center in the time of Liloa. The body of the pahu is generally carved from the base of the niu, the coconut tree, while the head of the pahu is of ili mano, the skin of the shark. The ancestors of Hawaiians brought ohe, bamboo, to Hawaii from Polynesia, perhaps 1,000 years ago, and the thin-walled form, Schizostachyium glaucifolium, is used to make a variety of hula instruments, including the pu'ili split rattle, ka eke eke tube percussion instruments, and the ohe hanoihu, the nose flute. I remember making my first nose flute in the valley of Wailau on Molokai long ago, and though I've made many since, that first one is still my favorite. And here it is, oh my gosh. Still playing. In the hula kahiko, the most traditional dance style, we can find hula that stylized the battles of ancient Hawaii. Hula sticks called kala'au are the stylized forms of spears and clubs, and as in the wood suitable for weapons, the slow-growing, extremely dense and strong wood of the lowland dry forests were also the best suited for hula implements. These included alahe'e, a very straight, light-colored tree, and kauila, a fine-grained and extremely strong wooded species, shown here growing in an a'a lava flow in Kona. But what is not widely known is that the movements of the hula share many elements with the movements of lua, which is the ancient Hawaiian martial art, a required part of the training of the chiefs and their ohua, their attendant retinue. The use of ritualized movement and exercises with weapons as part of the training of warriors is widespread in Polynesia, and perhaps best known in the form of the Maori haka, which not only builds courage and pride, but demonstrates readiness for battle. It's a tradition which continues today in both Maori and Hawaiian cultures. In such exercises, warriors could learn their deadly arts without harming their brothers in arms, but in battle, the movements would result in a dance of death. In fact, that's the title of this work drawn by Hawaiian artist Brooke Kapukuniahi Parker that features two major hand weapons, the leo mano, the sharp-toothed dagger, and the neva, the stone-head club. Today, a part of the excitement of hula kahiko is in the artistic recollection of those times, when a warrior staked his life on the qualities of the native woods that he selected and worked into his weapons, a reliance that required of him the most intimate kind of relationship with the natural world around him. Finally, leaving the material culture of hula, we'll spend a moment talking about the mele, the chants and songs of the hula that celebrate and incorporate elements of the aina, land, sea, and sky. A Hawaiian considers all of the natural elements of his or her home with great pride and love, and this is reflected in the words of chant and song. When you think on it, hula is an art form that does not exist without words. Hula is always a visual expression of words, and because of the world-class beauty of the island, the poetry of hula cannot help but be remarkable. The unique plants and animals of your aina are the perfect inspiration for song. Only in Ka'u on Hawaii Island can you find this species of silver sword. Only in the Aina Ko'olawa, Paleakala on Maui can you find the Akohekohe or crested honey creeper. Only in the Aina of Koke'e on Kauai can you find the fragrant mokihana. Only in the Aina Ko'olawa of Oahu grows the famous Lehua ahihi, and Oahu also boasts nearly all of the species of the pupu kanioi, the singing land snail. In the mele called Manu'o'o, the beauty of a lover is compared to the brilliant feathers of the o'o bird in the region called Malama on the island of Hawaii. Okay, sorry. Similarly, in the love song Ipule Manu, written by Queen Kapi'olani for her husband King Kalakaua, she says, "Iipia o uka, ole nai karua." Let's see, that was actually right around there. The uplands are a symbol of exalted status, and the chill of the rain is her intense love. The Ikiipi, of course, is the honey creeper that provides the magnificent scarlet of the feather cloaks of Hawaiian royalty, while the Manu'o'o mentioned earlier provided the brilliant yellow. It's no coincidence that both birds were denizens of the same upland Wawahua in which the gods dwell, and in which the inspiration for Hula comes. Let's finish up with one of my favorite Hawaiian songs. The beautiful Hula Waika is the modern adaptation of a chant from the time of Kamehameha I. Waika is an upland forest region of the Kohala Mountains on the north end of the island of Hawaii, and very few people visit this forest, which does not lie near any of the main roads. But to a biologist such as myself, the amazing thing about this song is that the words of over 300 years ago mention plants within the native forest that still exist there today, a celebration of the connections that remain between land and people, expressed in Hula. That's the very beat. Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. So I hope you got a feel for the kinds of connections that Hula has with the natural world, both in the material culture, the spiritual and religious background of it, and then in just the sheer amount of material that goes into the words of Hula that are inspired from the natural world. Those are the three elements. It's these kinds of details, I think, that we can use to build appreciation of people in general to what we have here in Hawaii. So that was the point of this presentation. If folks want to unmute on the phone, if they have any questions, please feel free to do so now. And we've often had a good discussion, so I'm going to continue recording, even though we're there.
The leader has unmuted your line.
Any questions from the
Muted.
from folks in the room, though? At this point?
I said you want me to do that.
Can you talk, Sam, a little bit about sort of the conservation ethics
I
that
did.
organizations have, particularly with Mary Monarch coming in?
Yeah, I'll take them to somebody. That's how I take care of it.
Rapid death and things like that.
Yeah, conservation ethic is a personal thing. I think it comes from individual training, and there are some Hula Halau that are really good at that message. They have really strict protocols on where and when they can collect, for example, lay material. Others will not collect unless they're also planting or in some way helping the area. I know some places, some halau that, for example, have their favorite palapalai patch, and they'll go in, and if there are weeds, they will remove those weeds and encourage the native plants to grow. The rapid Ohia death crisis that faces us now is kind of an interesting indication of how in the Hula community you'll have some very strong voices that will take the time to point out how important conservation issues such as this disease are. So when Kalena Silva agreed to be on a PSA about rapid Ohia death, or when a variety of Kumuhula jumped on and added their voices to the voice of conservation about the importance of not spreading the disease as a result of Mary Monarch participation. That was a good example of how this can be turned into positive actions for conservation. But did you have other issues or examples in mind?
No, I was just curious if you thought this was a long-standing sort of tradition or whether it's a growing
Go meet. There's still back in field.
Purposes of Hula and others.
I think whenever you're in times of abundance, it's easy to ignore conservation. But whenever you have a resource that's threatened by something, or it's becoming harder and harder to find because people are over collecting, you begin to have individuals and groups that will step forward and say, this cannot, this cultural practice is going to be threatened if it's business as usual.
That feels good, by the way.
Any other comments or questions from the room or from people on the phone? In a moment. On the phone? You might have to unmute if you've muted yourself well. I wonder if I muted them, they can't unmute.
Oh. Someone texted, they said applause.
Thank you. I can't see the text behind me. It doesn't show that.
Oh.
The last slide. So you'll have to tell me these things. That's funny. Thanks. Otherwise,
I have a question. I was wondering if there were different roles for men and women in hula in older times, or.
There were some folks who argued that hula was the realm of men in ancient times.
Yeah.
Certainly the first depictions of hula that you see were entirely male. So that's an interesting thought. And the connection between the martial art lua and hula is another possible reason. I remember when there are certain things, right? Even in today's world, the idea of gender equity in war, let's say, in warfare or the military, that probably wasn't quite as strongly expressed in ancient Hawaii. There are many stories of women battling alongside. So therefore, why would there not be women folks trained in lua? That's a thought. And yet you often don't see that in the written literature. Almost all the stories about Olohe or lua involve male folks. So I don't know. Maybe there was a gender thing going on there.
G. Golden.
I saw that message.
Hmm?
But in the realm of hula itself, that's a good question. Certainly in modern times, there doesn't seem to be. I do see in stories many more accounts of men training to be chanters. Interestingly enough. And in the ancient stories, most of with Hi'iaka, Kapoleopele, and Hopoi, and the origins of hula being a female thing, it suggests that the idea of men only dancing hula, that's probably not valid. I think anytime that you make any generalized sweeping statement about gender and activity in Hawaii, you're bound to be wrong. Nainoa Thompson, for example, was asked on Kaho'olawe by a student when he was training women navigators. And they said, what's the precedent? What's the traditional precedent for women navigators? And so Nainoa he usually turns his head down when he's thinking. And so I was wondering what he was going to come up with. He goes, well, there's Pele. And as soon as he said that, it was like, oh, you're talking about Pele. And the traditions, of course, is that she navigated her canoe from Tahiti to Hawaii when she came here. So once you do that, then I guess women navigators are just fine. So that was a cool thing. Any other questions or comments? Jason, you have another one?
I did. That is interesting that when there were things like the kupe and Helio, where you have non-native species that have been incorporated into hula. It's an evolving art, and I was wondering if there was any indication or if hula had anything to say about invasive species or new species coming to the islands over its evolution.
I don't know if Hula did, but certainly Hula has incorporated a lot of non-native things, right? Many lei, for example, that are born in Hula are not necessarily native species. Any brightly colored flower or nice smelling, like sake is a favorite
They're assuming you picked them right.
in my community, but sake is the Chinese jasmine. So, and by the same token, even the uli, the gourd rattle, what used to be gourd and it's now La Amia, which is the calabash tree brought in from, I think, Central America. And the seeds used in there are now just ginger relatives. So there's all kinds of adopting of non-native species. That being the case, you don't expect to see a lot of. It's more an opportunistic thing when it comes down to the material culture. And even in the realm of song and inspiration for song, there are so many songs about roses in Hawaii. Green Rose Hula, various other ones, Maui Lokelani, for example, or into modern song. So I think anything in Hawaiian experience, sensory experience,